And we're live.
Mm.
Hold on, I had like this whole little skit plan. I'm gonna see before people get on. I'm gonna see if I can do it really quickly. I was gonna do like a quick read of this new book and see if people like notice it. Like, but if people have the stream up now, it's probably like it doesn't work. But it doesn't work because they gotta like reload the stream. But I just really wanted to like highlight the book, and I have some stuff in the community that talks about it. Hi everybody, Chris Rogers here, innovator. Today I'm in my sweet bedroom, and behind me the Sugar Ray Robinson, favorite boxer. And today we're back, Make Cycle 4, all systems go. I love that saying. Says a lot. Um, Reminds me of like Thundercats for some reason. I don't know. But we have the San Diego Area Writing Project here with us today, and we are just going to go ahead and just dig in. We'll go ahead and pass it off to them.
Okay, I'm Kim Doulard. I'm the director of the San Diego Area Writing Project, and I'm also a classroom teacher who teaches a multi-age class of first, second, and third graders. And it's only 4 o'clock here in San Diego, so we have the earlier time shift. Chris is a little later. Maybe we'll see the sunset in your
Yeah.
Okay, Janice, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Janice Jones. I am part of the San Diego Area Writing Project as well. I teach in a city of Oceanside, which is in the North County of San Diego, and I'm a school-based resource teacher, which means I wear a lot of different hats and do pretty much everything nobody else wants to do. So that's me.
And I'm Abby Robles. I am a second and third grade teacher in Poway Unified. It's in San Diego as well. I'm a teacher consultant for the San Diego Area Writing Project, and I'm excited to be here today.
So at the San Diego Area Writing Project, we have been exploring this whole idea of connected learning and how it supports our students, but also how it supports ourselves as adult learners. And we've been kind of mucking around, I guess, for lack of a better word, with trying to figure out what that means to be connected learners. And through the process of that, we managed to find ourselves right in the complicated place of systems and all kinds of systems and how systems work and don't work and what is a system and what's not a system. So it's something we're exploring and trying to figure out, and how does it also apply to our work with students, and how does it apply to our work in professional development with teachers. So we're thinking about a lot of those kinds of things.
And then referring as we move along and are thinking about systems, and last week we were touching on systems with the games make and trying to figure out how to go deeper with systems. We've had a lot of conversations around systems and what is a system, what isn't a system, and it seems like the more we talk about it, the deeper it goes and the more we discover that we actually don't know. So we're here learning along and aside everyone else that's here. In our newsletter, one of the first things we started with was just, what's the definition of a system? And according to one of the online dictionaries, a system is a group of interacting, interrelated, interdependent elements forming a complex whole. And even that is difficult to kind of wrap your head around. So then we started thinking about different types of analogies. And one that I had heard as I was exploring online was one of the difference between a pile of tires and a bicycle. And the bicycle is a system that functions together, and the tires on the bicycle are part of that system that allow it to move forward with human action to make it go. And if you took one of the tires off of the bicycle, it would no longer work. However, if you have just a pile of tires that are no good anymore for whatever reason, and they're heading to the landfill and they're piled aside, and you remove one of those tires, it doesn't affect the pile of tires in any way. It's still just a pile of tires. And I think the way we worded it in the newsletter, let me refer back to that, is that if you remove one tire from the pile, you still have a pile of tires and nothing more. And one of the interesting things we've noticed today is the blog posts that people have been putting up regarding that statement, and how, well, maybe a pile of tires isn't just a pile of tires. That the pile of tires or a pile of anything relates to a whole bunch of other things, and that pile is actually a part of a system that went into manufacturing the tires, and they're part of the system where they will decompose and become an environmental hazard or whatever might become of the pile of tires. So again, something that we thought was a simple analogy through this community, we find out is much more complex than that. One of the other things that we included in our newsletter was a video, a systems story, systems thinking video, which if you haven't watched it, you really should watch it. It's enlightening and interesting, and gives another analogy. It's a story of the blind man and the elephant, and the story is that if you have 4 blind men and they approach an elephant and one touches the trunk, the one who touches the trunk will see that maybe that is a hose or some other long object, and someone touching the leg of the elephant might think that it's a column. So they each see the individual parts, but none of them sees the whole for what it is, which is an elephant. And the video goes on to talk about how love is a system, which is something that I personally had never thought of before, but there's all kinds of systems involved with love. So it's a very deep and complex topic to discuss, and I, for one, am not an expert, and I don't feel that any of us feel that we're experts, so we're looking forward to hearing other people's ideas and thoughts about it.
Definitely. So we do have a Make With Me today, where we're going to talk about systems. Kim, if you'd like to talk a little bit more about the screenshot, you can see that, correct?
Yeah, I can. Let me make sure that I can get it to go. So one of the things we have found easier for us to think about systems is to actually pay attention to whatever it is that we're thinking about and start thinking about. So what is the function of the system? What are the parts of the system? So we can avoid sort of the blind elephant, the blind man and the elephant. I guess the elephant isn't blind. But thinking about what are all the parts of the system, or as many as we can identify. What kinds of inputs does the system receive? What outputs does it provide? Is it part of a larger system, or is it interconnected with other systems? And I've been doing a lot of thinking about that within what we call the school system. And is there a subsystem? So there's all of these sort of nested questions to consider too, but it feels to me that in order to really pay attention to a system, we have to start thinking about what it does, what its parts are, and once we identify it, then we can think about it further, think about those sort of next steps.
Definitely. And then going into this other part, the Make With Me, I think it's really important to, once you can identify the system, then you can start being a little bit more creative with what you're doing with that system. So often people get frustrated. We were hearing a lot of that. We were seeing a lot of it in the community. And you just hear it all around. Once you start thinking of all of these situations around that produce frustrations, you know, you can get frustrated with the output, or you can look at the parts that make it up. So as Kim was saying, thinking about the system, thinking about the parts of it, the function of it. Is it part of a larger system, like that pile of tires that we thought was useless, actually being part of a larger system? Thinking about the subsystems. So we should be counting how many times we say the word system.
I know.
Because I've said it a lot already, and I'm already getting confused. But for this Make With Me, we wanted to invite participants to document, analyze, and reflect on the variety of systems that influence your life personally and professionally. We heard back from a few people already who were sharing things that they were doing that they never thought of as a system. And once they saw it as a system, it almost became something tangible, something that was able to be hacked, I guess, in a way. So we've provided a few questions. This also was on our newsletter that might spark some interest into how you can change a system. Like, how can you document a system that serves a function in your life? Like Janice said, with love. That's very important in our lives, and how can we look at that as a system? How can we document that system? How can you add inflow to an existing system to make it function more effectively? When I think about this, I'm thinking about students in the classroom. I'm thinking about those kids in the elementary classroom that get pulled out. In California, we do that. We get pulled out services, but sometimes there is a disconnect between perhaps like the RSP teacher like Janice and the classroom teacher, or there's lots of moving parts with our students, and really looking at how can we impact or apply pressure to certain parts that may not be functioning very effectively. If a student is not doing as well as they could be, really looking at the whole system. Let's see, Kim, what was something else that you had? Oh, I see little things coming up. Sorry, I'm new to Google Chat, or the Google Hangouts. So I'm looking at the little things that are coming up. Sorry.
Oh yeah. I just there was a great question. I don't know, maybe I don't know, might be able to save it for later. But some questions from the chat roll were around. And I have this up in the group chat. And if you hit the top left button on the, if you put your mouse into the Hangout, it's the top left button that has some lines on it. You can pull up the group chat, and I'll just drop some things in that are coming from the chat roll. One of those initial questions was, I hope you all talk about what you're thinking of making this week. So didn't want to interrupt. I see that you were like in the middle of a sentence, so I'm sorry about that.
No,
but I wanted to drop that in. So yeah.
So one of the things that I made this week is I started with what I thought was easier, which was paying attention to the systems that were going on around me. And I posted a blog post where I'd been out sailing and just noticing things in my own city, and realizing as I was noticing things that there were all of these different systems at play. And I started writing about the systems, from sailing and turning from one direction to another, which I hadn't really thought about as a system in itself, to the way the military works in our city and how it's integrated in. So it's just this variety of systems that are at play all the time. So that was my initial make. I don't know where I'm going to go from there, but I have some other ideas, but that's where I started. And I'm wondering, Janice, even if you want to just talk about your overheard conversation today.
Yeah, I had a doctor's appointment this morning, and it was really interesting going into the doctor's office thinking in terms of systems, because I could overhear the conversation between my doctor and another patient in the other room, and I could hear it very, very clearly. And the doctor was obviously frustrated with an elderly patient who was having trouble with self-care. And the elderly patient, I need to look at my notes, because she was asking her to see a neurologist, an ophthalmologist, a cardiologist, an endocrinologist, and a kidney doctor, which I think is a nephrologist, I'm not sure. But the general practitioner was asking this woman to see all of these specialists. And I could hear in the woman's voice a lot of anxiety and confusion. And the general practitioner, and from my experience, is the person that's kind of trying to see the whole person. But I don't know if the doctor was feeling rushed because I was waiting in the other room or what it was, but the doctor was very frustrated, and it seemed like she was, in a way, just trying to subcontract out this poor woman to all these other people who were going to take care of her separate parts, but nobody was really seeming to care for her whole being. And what it seemed to me that she needed at that moment was just somebody to hold her hand and help her walk through the system and give her some compassion and love and caring and support to help her navigate all those things. And it felt very empty to me. And when the doctor came in to see me, she moved on to my problems, which are inconsequential, and the poor woman went on, and I don't know, what's going to happen. But who's the person in that system that's caring for the whole person?
Yeah, so jumping back with the Make With Me, we wanted to talk about some systems. So once we identify them and we deconstruct them, what do we do then? And that's where we wanted to talk about hacking systems to make it work for you in new and interesting ways. So one of our friends, Amanda, let me go ahead and pull up where she's from. She's a writing project fellow from, let me go ahead, sorry. I'm trying to be as quick as possible. Is it up there? Yeah, from Georgia Southern University. And she was talking about how she uses the thought of systems. And she was thinking about how she wants to process her feelings regarding systems. So once you deconstruct them, what do you do with that information? So she came up with a handy, just a simple thing that she called a systems buster. So let me go ahead and pull that up. Thank you. Here we are.
Abby, while you're pulling that up, I just wanted to pop in real quick. I don't want to get too involved into it, but there's a popping, a clicking sound. I don't know if everybody can hear it, but it's coming from the chat, our chat roll that you have up and you're following the conversation. Has a sound effect on it down the bottom, and if you can just click that little audio speaker, it'll turn the sound off, and the chat will continue to roll. But just the clicking will stop.
I turned mine off. I just did.
All right, cool. So
I turned mine off too. Yeah.
Maybe it'll get better. It'll be great. But back to you, Abby.
Sorry. If you can look at Amanda's her system buster, it's a 4-part process that she was talking about. Sorry, I feel like I'm stumbling over my words here. I was laughing with her. So she was saying there's that one part with all of those colorful symbols, another part that says stay forever, a remix, and a bye Felicia. Bye Felicia, you can look that up on Urban Dictionary. It's basically, we don't want you anymore. We don't even want to remember you anymore. No offense to Felicias out there. It's just a slang. So it's this 4-part that just helps.
No, sorry. I was going to, no, because it comes, well, yeah, I guess I'll look it up on Urban Dictionary. It comes from Friday, the movie,
is that
1994. Ice Cube, Chris Tucker. Amazing movie, one of my top 5 movies of all time. But back to you, Abby.
Oh, no. I know, I was like, how do I summarize this? I was actually laughing with her, like, oh, thanks. Now I have to explain that. So basically it means, and if you agree with me, Christopher, it just means goodbye. We don't want you anymore. So, I mean, obviously it's on a clipboard. She's made it really cute. It's just called the System Buster. She said she will even laminate this for endless opportunities to bust systems. It helps her play with some systems around her that may seem overwhelming. Kind of like what Janice, with the patient who was feeling overwhelmed by all these different specialists she needed to see, kind of slowing down the main system. Either from her university, from local government, from syllabus
policies to even police brutality, taking these big systems around her that may seem overwhelming or intimidating, and just taking some time to jot down her feelings, to process her feelings about each of those. So then what she did is, instead of tackling those huge issues, she went ahead and talked instead about, oh great, where is it? Oh, bear with me. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to be as savvy as I can. Here it is. Christopher, that's still popping. Do you know? Is there anything else we can?
It's still popping. If I had to pick a, I think it's from James's computer.
Really?
It's if you have the chat roll up, there's a little audio speaker.
I didn't think I had it up, but I just closed all my tabs, so that might work.
Okay, so let's see. We'll figure it out.
Okay. I don't hear it now. Good.
Cool.
So far, so good?
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. So going with Amanda's, what she shared is she wanted to talk about the system of Twitter. So in the upper left corner, these are some frustrations she has with the system of Twitter, that it doesn't count as professional development or any in-service, or wondering, are you live tweeting this? Or I love that next one, like, I couldn't possibly do that and pay attention. I feel like I've been in plenty of Twitter chats where I'm trying to pay attention to what people are saying and I'm trying to comment too. It's just kind of a frustration, and that's where that is all contained. I love in the upper right corner, what she wants to stay forever with Twitter is the community. The international connections, the networking, the sharing, the equity, and it's even where she met her wife. Very sweet. So, of course, these are great connections that she loves about Twitter, just helping her process this big system. Some things that she would like to remix are to send short emails to Twitter contacts that she's yet to meet in real life, or to post short videos speaking to my tweet without a text caption. So maybe kind of going around that 140 character limitation, perhaps maybe like a Vine or, I don't know, Snapchat video, something very short that would be in lieu of the 140 characters. And then her bye Felicia would be trolls, duh. Also, speaking of trolls, would be maybe Donald Trump too. Maybe get rid of his Twitter. I don't know. There are a few more that I would add to that list. What I loved about what she shared, though, is, again, it helps her process her feelings. And so once she can get her feelings about this system out, this is just her first make. And possibly this make will create opportunities for more makes, where she could even take a part of her system buster and expand that even further and create more makes, and then maybe even create a system change, where by sharing her system buster with maybe her community on Twitter, or just continuing to go through that system, how it can create a systemic change for something that might be something that she thought was small or she actually thought was too intimidating, and how to take that and make it tangible, something that she can possibly tackle.
Thanks, Abby. Did I step in at the wrong time, or is it a good moment? I wanted to share some. We have some quick comments I've been trying to catalog from the chat roll. One earlier we used the term deconstructed. And Monica asked, how can deconstructed systems be reconstructed to create new systems? And we talk about deconstruction and reconstruction. What is the relationship between those two? I'm probably, as we get more into it, there'll probably be more flutter in the chat too, so we can pull some of their opinions in. But love to hear your thoughts as well.
I'd love to have Monica and Karen and these guys come on here, and Anna, so that we could talk to them instead of at them, because I notice they have great ideas. So I hope they'll pop on and join us so we can have a conversation about these pieces as well. The whole idea of deconstructing and reconstructing is, I think, a really interesting one, and I'm not sure we have to deconstruct a system in order to reconstruct it. And I think I've been thinking about the systems we have in place that have to do with writing assessment. And it always seems like when we think about fixing something or improving something, we seem to think like our politicians do, right, in the binary. It's either this or it's that. It's either right or it's wrong. We like it or we don't. And we don't think about the subtleties of other ways to create change. And so thinking about like writing assessment, like what if we change, what if the change that we make is not whether we do it or not, or whether it's this prompt or that prompt, but what if we changed what we do with student writing? And if we do something different than put a score on it and put it in a folder, how does that then change what happens in the process, and how does that change the system? If with the lady in the doctor's office, if instead of giving her a list of people to go to, if we did something different, referred her to, I don't know what the piece is. It's easier for me to talk about writing assessment than it is for me to talk about doctor's visits. But do you see what I'm getting at? This idea of pick a different spot in the system to work on, and be careful not to make it a binary spot so that it's only one of two choices. And it kind of reminds me of my students where we were doing some circuits to examine systems, and they had some copper tape, and they had some LED lights, and they had a battery, and they had to make their system, and every time their light didn't light up, they told me that their battery was dead. Every single time. And that to me is an example of what we do even as adults in so many things. When something doesn't work, we say, oh, the switch is broken. Oh, the battery's dead. Oh, we should throw out the writing assessment. Oh, we should not pass that bill. Instead of considering other places within the system to apply pressure in some place.
The question of deconstruction and reconstruction also reminds me of the conversation we had, Abby, about how you kind of wanted to deconstruct the grading and reporting system and reconstruct it into something new that would be more beneficial for your students and their families and for you as well. So that kind of ties in with that, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I'm still having a hard time understanding how to visually turn that into a make. But yeah, at my campus, it's a K through 8 campus, and we're doing all of these great formative assessments, as all teachers are doing, and it becomes this line between the teacher doing the assessments having to report that to parents, when really I wanted to find a way to not make it all my observations, my anecdotal evidence, my formative assessments, my, deconstructing the feedback from the technology that we're using. Instead, how could the child, the second grader, the third grader, really take charge and know the direction of their learning, their needs, their assessment? That way, when parents want to know, how is my child doing, they can hear it right from the horse's mouth. They can hear it right from the student, what they're working on, what are some of the things that they know that they've progressed on, and how did they measure that. So I'm not even sure how to make it because I'm still wrapping my head around it. I'm reading a book, Learning Personalized, trying to think, how do you put the student in that driver's seat in order to make my role as the facilitator instead of the communicator of the student progress. So I'm still working on that.
So I'm kind of wondering, yeah, I see that somebody else just said something about flowcharts. I was just thinking, what if you drew the system as it exists now? Like you tried to draw all of the stakeholders and all of the, you can see I'm going off to in another direction. It just made me think of something. But if you started to draw it, and I was thinking about, we actually did this in my school district with writing assessment, but we used Post-it notes, and we put all of the stakeholders we could come up with on Post-it notes in one area, and then we put all of the outcomes we expected in one area, and we started sort of matching them up to each other and looking at how do the stakeholders and the outcomes and the goals, how do they all interact with each other, so that we could start sort of mapping it out. And then we started thinking, well, what do we want? What's not happening that we want to happen, and how is that related to either who the stakeholders are, or what the actions are, or what the goals and outcomes are? I'm actually seeing you take a pencil on paper and
Just creating almost like a flow chart. Or
yeah, of sorts, or a sketch or drawing.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to make it really cute.
Well, you could do that as the second part, right?
I'm still working on it. I will share it with the community soon.
What have you, like, I saw, I wish Anna were on here. I saw one of our colleagues from Minneapolis map professional development onto the bike paths of Minneapolis. And I think it's such an interesting idea to take an existing map and use it as your structure and see how you can map on other ideas on top of them and see how they interact and cross with one another. So I'm trying to think, what map do we have, or what existing flow chart already exists that you could mess around with?
I know there is a lot of tools for creating sort of like those diagrams, and we have a growing number of tools for infographics. I believe if we check the Make With Me site, we probably got some stuff there that we could use that could keep it pretty like you want, Abby.
Yeah. I don't like to share my rough drafts as much.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if somebody noticed what I put into the community earlier. For me, it's just like, once I got the functional rough copy, I'm good. I just leave it in my brain. I don't really need to. Everybody's like, oh, you should make that better. I'm like, don't you just see what I'm trying to say? That's all. That's all you need to know. I'm wanting.
Well, Chris, as Abby and Kim were talking too, it reminded me of the spiral that you shared today, the Take the World by Storm spiral, and that kind of reminds me of what Abby's attempting to do with her students, that it's the us and the you and the world and where it begins and where it ends, and maybe you could talk about your design there a little bit.
Oh, thanks, Janice. I'm coming. Look, you're talking about system changing. We just had like a whole, you said you wanted to move from a communicator to a facilitator. That's look at Janice. She's you got
Good job, Janice.
Right. So yeah, I've been working for thinking about this for a minute. Ever since sort of like I've been teaching an English course, my first English course at the school that I'm at in the fall, and I really wanted to get my you talk about like social systems, right, and systems that we're all implicated in. One of the things that I'm really trying to avoid or really teach students to think beyond is there's sort of like inherent to respect institutional authority, right? And as someone who's born and raised in America, and we talk about all the things that's in this book, we talk about the institutions that make up America and how morally bankrupt a lot of their practices are. We need something, a different system, right? That speaks to that. And what I'm trying to impress upon students is we need to move to something that's more about sort of like personal and communal respect. And So through this spiral, through this circle, through this like relationship, what I'm trying to impress is that first, and it comes from algebra project Bob Moses, and he talks about the three tiers of demands, right? Demands on self, demands on your peers, and demands of larger society. So that was like where I got like the you, us, and the world, right? And what I want students to understand is that when we come into the classroom, it all starts with what you are asking of yourself, right? And then you should let that first set of demands, what are you asking of yourself? Now you want to begin to work those onto your friends, and I'll ask your friends to hold you accountable for those demands that you have made of yourself. In the same respect that you should ask your friends to make demands of themselves, and you should hold them accountable. And that creates that sort of like circle spiral. And the more people that we begin to add, because we're always trying to grow a larger circle, right? We're always trying to add people into the mix. We're always trying to say, well, who is part of us? Who can be part of us? And how we define ourselves, right? And how do we make that circle bigger? So as we begin to make that circle bigger, it starts spinning more, and it's bigger and becomes a much bigger force. And I used this. I found this awesome connection. Romare Bearden, between like 1963 and 1966, he had this artist collective called the Spiral Group, right? And it was all based, well, the branding of it was all based around this Archimedean spiral. An Archimedean spiral is like starts small. I'm no math teacher, but it starts small and it just gets grander and grander and grander. So I saw that and was like, that's exactly what it is. It's a spiral, and it keeps growing bigger and bigger, and it like that force, right? And as we begin to make that force grander, it shows how it begins with you and could impact the world. So that's like my grand. It's way more poetic than I think it is. It's science fiction than it is more than it is so like any sort of like real science. But I think it's great. I can't wait to share it with my kids to see what their response is. So that's my long-winded take. I feel like it took like 5 minutes. Yeah.
And Chris, it really reminds me though of an article that we put as a resource in the newsletter, which is this idea that it's not about goals, it's about practices. It's about the things that we do every day in an ongoing way, which is what I'm hearing you say in this spiral, is that you agree to do something and then you get your peers to help you continue your practice, and then when things become a practice, then they can spread out to other people, and then the practice grows, and this perfect storm is a result of it. And this idea of, like, in that article that we had posted, said something about, like, if you could say I have a goal to write a novel, but you would be better off, instead of saying my goal is to write a novel, to actually sit down and write every day. And if you write every day, the likelihood of writing a novel increases dramatically than just going around saying I'm going to write a novel, but you don't actually do any writing. And so it's that same thing. It's these practices that need to be put in place. And so when I think about Abby's make, like, what are the practices that she's going to have to put in place every day, every week, to enable her students to be the communicators and the evaluators of their own learning and growth? Because just saying that she wants them to do that it's not going to change anything. It's all in the practices that we do. So it's thinking about those habits and daily things, and it doesn't help make cute makes. That's the problem with systems. I don't think there's a lot of cute makes in systems, but there's a lot of really big ideas to grapple with.
Yeah, and I think as the facilitator, with what you were saying, Kim, my role is to get as prepared as possible this summer so that those habits can start day one when school comes back in. Really meeting with students often, because I hear about student-led conferences where it's almost like the teacher gives them the material for what they tell their parents. I want them coming up with the material. I want all of that, but how do I do it? And it's using the summer to really arm myself and get ready for how can I make that a habit. And Christopher, how can they share their goals with their peers? You know, and why does it matter? Why do you need to become proficient at this, this, and this. Why? How does that impact the greater world? So I see how all of this does spiral together into a greater system. So.
Yeah, and I mean, and Abby, I'm taking sort of like a privilege here, but in that connection, right? I think the intersecting systems, right, and the interlocking systems. So like when I think about like what I'm doing in my classroom, right, is I'm setting up a I get the like the benefit to set up a system that will allow students to be more prepared for a grander system that they're already in, right? So it's like it's interlocking in that sense that I want this spiral, right? It's not really about this class per se, and I think that speaks to like this whole like institutional authority piece is like it's about how we should live, right? And I don't want you to box it in to think this is a closed system.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing we should talk about too, open and closed systems. But like, I don't want you to box it in and think it's a closed system that is just about this school. I'm really trying to open up to think about how we live and the practices that we take on a daily basis and how we walk and talk with the people around us. So I don't know, but I got to get into the chat room too. I feel like there's been some awesome discussions going on in there.
Yeah. As you're doing that, I wanted to share something that my friend Pat, he emailed me about some things that he's doing, just small shifts in his high school classroom. Just making content, like he has to teach Hamlet, anything Shakespearean, and how does he do that? How does he make, these core subject areas, how does he make them relevant and important to the students where it makes something greater than just his high school classroom? So he was talking about how he looked at the system of what does he need to teach, how do students usually approach that material, even what is the students, how do they traditionally approach Hamlet? Usually they memorize, they hear from others what they need to know. And so he was thinking, how can you disrupt the whole system in a productive way so that the students are still learning about Hamlet and they're also getting a new way of understanding it. So what he does is he approaches the material from the perspective of a student who's only exposed to the negative side of hearsay. What he wants to do is he just wants to make the content relevant, make it just different, and to take that information, and he even said he wanted to make it untestable information. That way he can try to intercept the traditional high school system of memorization. So he wanted to make that content so alive, so relevant, that his students had no choice but to really understand it and live, the lessons that were found in Hamlet. So I thought that was something neat that kind of paired with, it's bigger than the classroom. We can take small things and how do we hack it as educators? How do we take content that we may find interesting, but our students don't, and how do we hack it so that it means more to them, it's more relevant? So, Christopher, did you find some more questions?
Yeah. So I got talking about systems and fun, systems and fantasy. There's this thread going on about children's stories and systems in children's stories. Alice in Wonderland came up. And the idea of picture books as systems, right? How are we how are we bringing those things to the surface?
How might a picture book be a system? Are we thinking of the storyline, or?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to give an example, right, I would. Well, the storyline is one, right? I think a lot about like fantasy stories and the rules within them. Like you see like a lot of flying children or things like that, and what's at work there. I think the illustrations, right, is its own system, and the way that people may choose to tell the story. Isn't that called like semiotics? I don't know. But yeah, just something to think about when we talk about like these fun and fantasy and these more imaginative systems and play. What is this like? Systems for play. Yeah.
As you were talking, I was thinking back to last week and the games and the systems within games and how so many of the games are based on fantasy and how the characters interact, and they have their own storylines within the games, and so that kind of addresses that idea of the fun and the fantasy and the system and putting all those pieces together and seeing the whole.
Well, and I think too, I mean, I think stories work that way as well. I mean, within a story there are characters, and what would happen if you took a character out and put a different character in? How does that change the system of the story? And our students enjoy doing that thing. Like, what would happen if you added a chapter? What would happen if you added a next page? How does that change the system that is the story? And some stories are systems and some stories aren't. But I'm thinking about a picture book right now. I'm actually going to step away for a minute. I'm going to get it and show you what I'm thinking. So keep talking.
Yeah, I was. Oh man, hold on! Don't let me lose it. Don't let me lose it. Gosh.
We lost it.
Oh man, I looked at the chat roll. Oh gosh. I can't walk away. We got two people walk away. Dang, I'm gonna sit on that. Hopefully, someone else can sort of like come up with the conversation right now. I want to get it back again.
All right.
Okay.
Perfect timing, Kim.
Perfect timing. I didn't hear any talking going on
great,
while
great.
I was.
No,
There was a lot of thinking.
I finally came back. I'm sorry for interrupting. It came back.
Okay.
When you were talking about characters, right? One of the most popular video games, right, is huge. Super Smash Brothers, right? Where you have all these different like Nintendo video game characters and whatnot in like sort of like they're visiting each other's world and they're fighting against one another. And I think of like when you talk like picking characters out of books and moving them in different systems. That'd be a really fun activity for like an author study or something like that, and to take a character from a different book and to put them into a different story, and how would they react in this situation? Oh, that'd be awesome.
That's like that movie Wreck-It Ralph, where all the video game characters start to come together a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
So I was thinking about this book. Have you guys seen this one? It's called Sidewalk Flowers.
Mm-mm.
And it's a wordless book, so it doesn't have any words in it at all. But there's this interesting story that's being told, and there's kind of two things going on at once, which I think there's some interconnected systems. But here's another thing that I think is a system. The way graphic novel kinds of panels are put together. I don't know if you guys can see this or not.
Yeah.
But even the making of the way the story progresses across the page, I think, is a system. But there's kind of two systems, I think, going on at once in this story. There's the walk that the dad is having. So you see that the red is the little girl. And then what the girl is doing, and I don't know if you can see, like if you look down in this panel right down here.
I see a bicycle tire and a bicycle.
I know, isn't that amazing? There are bicycles everywhere this week.
Mm-hmm.
But notice also what's down in there?
Dandelions.
Dandelions. And then we go on to the next page.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see, and then, so you see all along what's happening, and you're just thinking about what's going on. Let me see if I can find a critical juncture here.
Well, and I haven't read that book, but I would want to know you know, what is the importance of color, obviously, in that book. And
which is a part of the system, right?
yeah. Oh.
So I mean, there's a lot going on in this system, but I feel like there's multiple things going on at once in the system. But you're right. There's the color. Like, what role does the color play in this system? What role does the lack of color play? Why did they decide on some pages to make two big open panels, and on other pages you have the more tightly pulled in panels? Bless you.
Sorry.
So I just think there's so many things to think about. I think those are fun. I don't know if other people think that's fun or not, but
Yeah, we had some comments. People love the sample that was shown Sidewalk. I want to throw in another question. As we talk about systems and how these things are systems, what happens when systems clash, right? When you have two like I think about languages, right, and translation, and what translates and what doesn't. As Anna pointed out in the chat roll about like the publishing system and what things are left out and what things becomes part of a new system. What happens when systems clash? I'm thinking of languages first and foremost because I'm thinking of like translations and what ideas become left out because they didn't translate. But I would just love to throw that out there.
yeah, and when you say language, I don't even necessarily think that it has to mean like Spanish and English. I think sometimes our systems clash when we use the same words, but we don't mean the same thing. And we see this, I feel like we see this a lot in like professional development. Somebody throws a term out there as though we all have the same experience with it. And, you know, assessment's one of those terms. We find that this term we use in our writing project, mentor text, means different things to different people. And so the systems don't work very well when within my system it means this thing and within your system it means this other thing. And then when we try to talk about it, we are clashing and it's not having the same result in both places. So then just imagine when it gets magnified and it's about entirely different languages. I think we see a lot of these systems at work just being carried out in the news every day as we listen to the Greeks talk about the financial system that's not working in their country and other people's solutions not working for them either.
I was also thinking just about body language and how different body language ways of communicating across cultures, just, you know, between families or in relationships in general, how you can have mixed signals there also.
That's true. We were talking about hijabs, you know, the headscarves the Muslims wear today in the Summer Institute, and how within different belief systems people are interpreting that that custom, that dress in different ways, and how it's problematic then when people come in contact with each other with sort of a lack of understanding of each other's systems or belief systems. And some are seeing it as some women who are wearing hijab are seeing it as a statement about their belief system, and others are seeing it as a symbol of oppression, and others are seeing it as a symbol of religion. And, you know, there's all of these mixed messages happening, and it complicates classrooms is what we were learning. This was a community college teacher talking about the very complex systems at play in her English class here in San Diego County.
Yeah, so look, we're coming up on 5 minutes. Um, I know there was Anna. I think she's in the chat room. She had to leave early, but she did put a question in a while ago, so for specifically to Kim. But I think it'd be great for all of us to sort of dig into. And it talks about our next steps for our makes this week, and how we're going about doing it. And for me, I always like talking about the messy part too, the questions and the things that we might have sort of like not feel too strong about in our next steps as well. So I would love to sort of like go around and share that.
Okay, so I have an idea for a make that actually came from.
I had an idea for a make for you when you were looking at that book too, so we might have the same idea for you.
You had so I'm always thinking about how to use the photographs that I take in new and interesting ways, and I was just thinking, like, could I actually curate photographs, which I'm really bad at, and make some sort of picture book story by curating my photographs into a wordless book. A system that would work together where the pictures were probably, I can say, the pictures will not have been taken in a sequence. They weren't taken intentionally, but could I curate the pictures that I have into a story in that way? Does that seem doable? Maybe, Janice, maybe you had a better idea.
No, I just saw the dandelion and thought of you and your passion for dandelions and thinking about the whole system around that and how that could be another interesting take on it.
That's true too. Okay, you guys, what are you thinking now? I have two makes now.
Abby's got a very complicated make to tackle of transforming her
I
whole...
know. How can we make something way more playful? I liked, some people were talking about just summer vacation. Mallory McNeil was just talking about summer vacation and talking about the systems of that. So my goal is to come up with something a little bit lighter as I also try to tackle something a bit larger, but how can I make it fun? So I love the idea of the wordless picture book, or I love taking photos. I'm just getting into Snapchat, so maybe I can do that. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, I'm definitely trying to think, how can I use some of these great digital tools to make it a little bit more fun? So sorry, nothing hard for you yet, but it will come soon.
Well, and I think the important thing, and I'm kind of in the same place you are, Abby, as far as not exactly knowing where the make cycle is going to take me this week, but I think that's important for anybody that's listening to know that even though we're facilitating this week, that we are all struggling with the concept of systems and trying to figure out how we can represent what they mean to us, and that we're doing this alongside you, and just whatever anybody creates is the perfect thing for each of us to create. So one of the things I've been contemplating is Terry Elliott kind of called me out in a post.
I have an idea for it.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh, what happened?
Did we lose Kim?
There she is.
I can't hear you right now. Am I still here?
Yeah, you're like popping in and out, Kim.
Oh, okay.
Looks like you're moving fine again.
Okay.
So you're good.
Okay. So now did everybody else freeze? I had an idea for Abby for her make.
Oh, yes. Let me hear it.
Are you there, Abby?
Yes.
You have make with me up for you now. Okay. I was thinking about what a great movie maker you are, and I just wonder if you can make a movie that is about how to have fun in the summer.
Oh, I would have to have fun during the summer to know, but yes, I could do something like that. Speaking of, while we have this up, some of the things from the newsletter that we were asking people, maybe this could inspire some of your makes. Starting with the bottom bullet, how can you design an entirely new system for something that has yet to be imagined? Can you create a new system to take place of one that is no longer useful or has become obsolete? We love hacking at San Diego Area Writing Project. We're always trying to hack some sort of system to make it work for us in new and interesting ways, or even just to remediate. system in order to improve it, going on the make cycle 2 cycles ago, really thinking about how can you go back and kind of resuscitate, bring it back to life to improve it. So with that said, as we close up, just thinking about how can we, you know, in a fun way, in a summertime way, or maybe in a complex way, show these systems that are surrounding us that may be frustrating us, that may be just intriguing us, and make that come to life for others in the community to see it.
Awesome. I know me myself, doing some understanding more about the system of white supremacy that we are implicated in. We're having a talk tomorrow at edtechtalk.com. I'll post a link into the chat roll and try to get some stuff up on Twitter about it. Tomorrow night with Paul Allison, we're talking more about this book and some other insights that Ta-Nehisi Coates leaves us with. Before we go ahead and get on out of here, is there any sort of like final words, comments, suggestions, recommendations for folks out there?
I think just have fun and try to put your fear aside. It's hard for me every time I post something to the MOOC. I'm always kind of have a little bit of anxiety about what kind of reaction I'm going to get, but I always try to do it with a little bit of fun and not worry about that so much and just grow from it.
Yeah, I would say
Definitely.
take a risk and put something out there. That's the best thing, and then we'll all learn from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, take a risk. Actually, and I know someone talked about love earlier. Toni Morrison, I think like she should write the system of love. She's awesome at it. I have some links about that as well. So we are closing up here at Make With Me. Make Cycle 4. All systems go. All makes go. All makes count. And let's see you on Thursday at the Twitter chat.
All right, thank you.
And we'd love to talk more about what you've been making. So great. See ya.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.